basement.
Oh.
I don't either anymore. It's really weird to know that you know where to go.
That would be kind of weird, actually. You're right.
Water table's that high, huh?
Well, it's a walkout ramp, so, yeah.
It's holding me a second.
So is this tape or is this live stream?
Tape.
Okay, we'll call our meeting to order. The first thing on the agenda is a roll call. I'll let the minutes reflect all members are present. And we'll set the agenda. Is there anybody who'd like to change or add to the agenda today?
President Priner, staff have no adjustments.
Okay, anything from the board? If not, I'll entertain a motion.
I move approval of the agenda.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor? Approval of the minutes?
Madam Chair, I have reviewed, I was absent from last meeting, but I did watch it prior to this meeting, so I am prepared to move approval of the July 28th, 2021 regular meeting of the Rice Creek Board of Managers.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Next thing is the consent agenda. Does anybody have any questions for Patrick this morning?
Madam President, I do.
Okay,
Dealing with, turn you off, dealing with permit 21-055 on page 22, administrative paragraph 3. So I'm trying to understand the applicant is relying on Shoreview's pond and how those, the applicant and Shoreview are going to deal with maintenance going forward.
Manager Bradley, yes, the application is proposing to use a regional pond and an irrigation system that are both owned by the city of Shoreview. So the maintenance obligation here is for that system, so it is on, well, it's on county property, but the applicant is working with the city and the county to ensure that there is a proper access and maintenance agreement, so that the city, is able to maintain that pond. And then further, as you're referencing here for administrative item number 3, that maintenance agreement would be with the city.
Okay. So the applicant's not going to maintain this, the city is, but you want the city to approve basically this process.
Yes, the city will be maintaining the system, and so we will have the agreement with them.
So thank you. The next thing I have is on page 22, is it 22, 23? There's a footnote, excuse me, it'd be on page 23. The last sentence says there may be limits on using Rice Creek's funds to meet permit requirements because of the fact that they've received money from the Metropolitan Council. That's in paragraph 2, stormwater, the footnote right under the table there. Due to funding by Metropolitan Council, full volume may not be eligible for permitting purposes. Would you please discuss that?
Certainly, Manager Bradley. So the system, the irrigation reuse system, was constructed in 2018. There was a 2017 grant with the Metropolitan Council, and then Rice Creek, we also provided grant funding in 2018. So this system has already been created, and now through working with the developer, they've made that system eligible for regulatory use, which is allowable through our program. So the comment here is that the system does have the 24,159 cubic feet of capacity, but due to the funding sources, that would include both grant funding from Rice Creek and grant funding from Met Council. So we're trying not to speak on behalf of Met Council, if that full capacity would be available for regulatory use. It is possible, but we'd look for that conversation. But I would note that, yes, so the amount that's required for the project is significantly less than that full 24,000. So it's not an issue here, but if it were to be used for a future project, we'd look for that to be confirmed.
Because there is no, there's no issue under our own rules because of the nature of this particular project, how it's located.
Correct.
It's just that we don't know whether or not the Metro Council has an issue.
Correct. Yeah, we'd hate for it to, cause an issue with the, agreement between Met Council and they start saying, well, we'd like to, get involved in this, and then there's funding issues, and so we just want to make sure that that's confirmed before any, future project might use it.
Where in this document do you lay out the requirement to have that clarified?
I don't know if it is in this document. We did have the city of Shoreview provide a letter that is listed in the exhibits. It's number 6 on the exhibits, the previous page, page 22. The city did indicate, that they're allowing the applicant to use the facility, but then they were acknowledging that, yes, they would have to communicate with the Met Council if they were to use additional, that 24,000 cubic feet of capacity. So it is in a letter. I don't know that it's necessarily explicit in the engineer's report here.
It's in a letter from the city.
Correct.
Explaining it. So the city's going to determine this issue through Met Council.
Correct. It's the city's facility.
Okay.
Madam Chair, I have a question on this also.
Okay.
So we know this property, you can see it explode in front of us as we're driving down 35. So there are townhouses and apartments that are fully constructed at this point, and then next to it is a site that they're working on. Is that, so just so I understand the procedural nature of this, is this, when we see an application like this says final, where does, final site drainage? Has construction started on this site already?
Manager Wynett, there shouldn't be any construction on this site specifically. There was a previous permit that should be permit 1876, so that's likely what is being seen right now. And then this is the, there was an additional lot 4, that was not covered under the past permit.
Okay.
So that's what this is for.
Wow. Another explosion of homes.
Madam President.
Yes, go ahead.
So, proceed a little farther on Manager Bradley's question so I understand it. You're saying that the district requirement here is 8,543 cubic feet of the 24,159?
Correct, based on it.
So that's that point. So we're saying in here that the difference between the 24,159 and the district's requirement of 8,543 is something we don't have control over, and we're not dealing, our permit doesn't give you any authority because that's the Met Council's territory. Is that pretty much what the gist of it is?
So the full capacity, which is based on that ½ inch per week, is the 24,159. So based on the impervious surface that's being added for this project, they are required to provide 8,543 cubic feet of treatment. The system itself that they're proposing to use, that irrigation system, if you look at the funding of that, if you were to exclude the portion that has been funded by Met Council, it would still exceed this 8,543 cubic feet. It's something like, I think, 12,000 or 14,000 cubic feet.
That's what I wanted to know. Thank you.
Okay. Everybody settled then? We'll need a motion on the consent agenda.
Madam President, I move Madam President, I move to Cap Rock permit number 21-054 and 21-055.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, at this time, we're going to recess our regular meeting and go to our public hearing. Welcome everybody to our public hearing on the petition of the U.S. Home Corporation for the abandonment and realignment of portions of Anoka County Ditch 72. For this hearing, the Watershed District Board of Managers is seated as a drainage authority for Anoka County Ditch 72. The purpose of the hearing is to receive comments from the public as to the petition in order to inform the Board of public concerns. Our decision on the petition is based on the following standards found in Minnesota Statute Section 103E 227 and Section 103E 806. For the proposed realignment, based on the engineer's report and other evidence presented, will the action as proposed, A, be of public and private benefit, B, impair the utility of the drainage system, C, deprive affected landowners of drainage system benefit? And for the proposed abandonment, once the drainage system is realigned, will the portion of the drainage system orphaned by the realignment, A, serve a substantial useful purpose as a part of the drainage system to any property remaining in the system, B, provide substantial public health and utility? If the board finds that the action will be a public or private benefit and that the answers to the remaining questions are no, then the board will make an order modifying the drainage system as requested in the petition. To facilitate comments at today's hearings, notice of the time and location of the hearing was mailed to the petitioners, owners of the property, and political subdivisions likely to be affected by the proposed action. The board received a petition and a bond from U.S. Home Corporation with its consultant Justin J. Olson, P.E., and of Carlson McCain Incorporated for the abandonment and realignment of the portions of Anoka County Ditch 72. The petitioned actions are for the beneficial purpose of the facilitating development of property owned by the U.S. Home Corporation and platted for development of all the Watermark 3 development project, which is a single-family housing development. The U.S. Home Corporation intends to divert the flow of drainage system waters and realign portions of the drainage system to provide continued drainage to the upstream properties. All proposed activities are to occur on property owned by U.S. Home. The board accepted the petition and bond under statutes 103E 227 and 103E 806 and appointed Houston Engineering to prepare a report assessing the impact of the proposed action. Houston Engineering completed its work and filed a report with the board. The petition and engineer's report are made available for review at the district's offices and on its websites in advance of the hearing and will be reviewed today. Please note that all our proceedings today are recorded. The order of business for this hearing will be as follows. First, Mr. Tomczak, the district's administrator, will introduce a presentation of information related to the petition action. Mr. Tomczak will be assisted by Mr. Kolb, the district's counsel, and Mr. Otternis, the district's engineer. Following the staff presentation, I open the meeting for the public comment. The board would like to hear any comments and concerns regarding the proposed action. Our decision must be based on legal requirements related to the petition action as well as the engineer's report and other evidence presented. During the public hearing, the managers may ask questions of staff or consultants making presentations or of commenters in order to clarify any testimony. In order, if a member of the public asks a question, a manager believes the response for the district staff or district consultant can readily resolve the question or enrich the testimony, the manager may ask me to have appropriate staff member or consultant speak to the question. However, the manager's expressions of their positions and general discussion concerning the subject of the public hearing should be avoided during the public comment portion of the public hearing. Board discussion will occur after all the members of the public have had a chance to speak and the public comment period has been closed. Board decision may occur and be concluded at this or subsequent meeting as the board decides. So with that, I think we'll go to Mr. Tomczak. Are there any other board members that'd like to speak before we start? If not, we'll go ahead.
President Preiner, board managers, I'll just note for the record, the due notice that the district provided on the petition it received. St. Paul Pioneer Press newspaper, July 21st, July 28th, August 4th, 2021. The Quad Press newspaper, week of July 27th, 2021. We mailed notice to the U.S. Home Corp, the petitioner, Justin Olson of Carlson McCain, the petitioner's engineer, City of Lino Lakes, Anoka County Highway Department, MnDOT on July 20th, 2021. Mail notice to all owners of property in political subdivisions that are affected by the petition or are within the sub-watershed boundaries of the ditch, mailed July 20th, 2021. Posted on the district website and at the district office on July 15th of 2021 and through the district's email noticing system on July 15th of 2021. President Preiner, I'll note that John Kolb isn't with us today. That is by design. Here it is a public hearing. We'll see what comments come into the district, if it any. And from there, we'll create an order based on whatever comments we get and move forward from there. At that time, we can have John present.
Okay.
I'll turn it over to Mr. Otterness if you're ready.
Madam President,
Go ahead.
just because you're looking for public comments, are you intending to hold the public comment period open longer than this meeting?
The board can certainly do that if it like.
Okay. Go ahead, Chris.
Madam President, Board of Managers, again, the proceeding we're here today to consider is the petition for Anoka County Ditch 72, the partial abandonment and realignment of portions of that drainage system. The area in question is generally between Interstate 35E and County Road 54. You can see on the graphic shown on the screen here, the area that is intended to be platted and converted into multiple use properties is shown in the darker area on the screen. That area is currently under row crop. Again, you can see on the screen that there's multiple branches of the Anoka County Ditch 72 system on there. Those branches are shown in a magenta or a pink color on the screen. There are also some dashed orange lines on the screen. Those are actually former portions of Anoka County Ditch 72 that were abandoned under a Rice Creek Watershed District order roughly, I believe, about 8 years ago or so. We had a historical review of the drainage system, and the Watershed District had reestablished records and at the same time abandoned those portions of the system, no longer providing a public benefit, which included the tile lines that were 6 inches or less in diameter. And so those are those orange ones on the screen, and we aren't considering those at this time, but it's just important to note that those were a part of the drainage system at one time previously. President Preiner already talked a little bit about the basis for the consideration, and specific to our review, we looked at a few different items. The project purpose, which is to realign that tile to accommodate the land use change. And then under statute 103E227, which is for impounding, rerouting, and diverting drainage waters, the statute requires that the project has to have a public or private benefit, not impair the utility of the ditch, and not deprive landowners of benefit. And those are the considerations that we use to provide our recommendation. In addition, there's another statute applicable. That's statute 103E805, the partial abandonment of a drainage system. And that criteria that we evaluated was determining whether the drainage system serves a substantial purpose, benefit, or utility. Again, that portion is proposed to be partially abandoned. Now, the graphic shown on the screen here shows a little greater detail where that project area is, shown in the yellow outline on the screen. And specifically, there are 4 different branches of Anoka County Ditch 72 going through this property that are affected by this petition. Those include the main trunk, which goes diagonally through the property from northwest to southeast. There's also a branch 11 that goes up to the north end of the property, actually traverses into another property for a distance. There's also a lateral to that branch called lateral 4A that eventually crosses the freeway, Interstate 35E. And then there's a branch 12 that traverses the property and goes west onto another property. It's an exception to that 40-acre parcel located along County Road 54. So we have a number of modifications here due to the number of branches that are affected. In total, there are 5 different abandonments, and I won't go into each one in great detail other than noting that they affect those 4 different, actually 5 different branches that I had previously mentioned here. In addition to those partial abandonments, some of those that still need to maintain the public drainage due to the fact that they convey waters outside of the landowner's property. Those particular branches, the landowner has petitioned then to realign. Those include branches 11, 12, and branch 11 lateral 4A. Again, those are all ones that will continue after this project to convey flow from outside the property in the public drainage system. One important thing to note is that all portions of that realigned tile will be constructed at the elevation of the as constructed subsequently improved condition and at the diameter or size of pipe of that condition. Consistent with the existing tile and inverts that are located on the property. So the tile will be reconnected to those existing tiles, keeping that existing grade in place. One more graphic here shown on the screen indicating the portions to be abandoned and realigned. The portions to be abandoned are shown in kind of the squiggly lines shown on the map. The red squiggly lines to be those that are existing public drainage system. You also note some blue squiggly lines. Those are those drain tiles that I mentioned before were previously public tiles and now are considered to be private since they were abandoned. The solid red lines are those portions of the system that are intended to be realigned, so those will be new tile lines that will be constructed as part of this project. In some cases, they're going to be located along the outer alignment of the plat. There's one case, namely branch 12, which is the one servicing that exception to the property on the west side of the property. That one actually will need to go through the a portion of the platted property in order to be able to reconnect up to that main trunk area. Some requirements that have been imposed upon the petitioner both by district rule and by what we're recommending to be put into place with the conditions of the resolution would include that the pipe again be reconstructed that as constructed subsequently improved condition, that it provide a access corridor for maintenance into the future, and this access will need to be free of permanent structures or and features, or in some cases if they're going to be, for instance, a trail in place, then there will need to be an indemnification for any damage occurring due to maintenance that occurs along that pathway. And for these features that are part of this project, due to the fact that they're subsurface, they're going to need to provide the ability to use trench reconstruction techniques to be able to complete future maintenance and repair, meaning they're going to have to provide enough of a corridor in there for the excavator to be able to come in, place spoil materials next to the pipe as they're working. Then the applicant will be or is providing an easement over that tile and access corridor so that it can be maintained into the future. So part of our review, as I mentioned earlier, we have to review the utility of the system. and its function, and due to the fact that they're replacing the system with the same grades and diameters as is currently out there, there will be no change in the drainage function upstream or downstream of the system. The location of that realignment is sustainable, meaning that the district will be able to access it in the future for maintenance along the system. Important to note that the Rice Creek Watershed District, as this is a public drainage system, the district will maintain its responsibility to complete maintenance and repairs of the system, inspection into the future. We reviewed potential for impacts to wetlands, floodplains, or runoff rates, and we've determined that the proposed petition of work will not impact the wetlands, floodplains, or runoff rates. We also reviewed whether there is public or private benefit. In this case, the benefit of the project is to accommodate private benefit, that private benefit being the development on the petitioner's property. So our conclusions are that the proposed modifications will provide a benefit, and that benefit is a private benefit. They will not impair the utility of the public drainage system. They do not deprive affected landowners of benefit, and that we recommend the Drainage Authority order that partial abandonment and realignment of the drainage system. We further are going to recommend some conditions on the for the order on this petition. We recommend that the improvement cannot commence until district staff have approved plans and construction specifications for the tile, and that the petitioner notify district staff prior to construction of the tile, and that the petitioner provide record drawings of the work, including televising video of the realigned tiles. And it will also be likewise important that the petitioner maintain flow throughout the completion of that construction. They cannot block flow off during that construction and inhibit the drainage benefit of those landowners upstream from the system. And with that, my presentation is done, and if the manager does have any questions for me, I can address those at this time.
Any questions? Go ahead.
Chris, did you pull up your picture that shows the squiggly lines, the things are being removed versus the heavy lines, the new ones? So that, all those squiggly lines used to take water and get it to a ditch. How does that, where does that water go now under this plan?
So the water from the development will be routed into a number of stormwater pond features on site, and those are all items that have been included in the permit that the district has already considered for this property, I believe at the last board meeting.
Thank you.
Any other questions for any of the staff? Manager Waller?
Good morning. Thank you, Madam President. Good morning, Chris. Thank you for those extra modifications about checking the construction of it and making sure the water flows. And those are all concerns I think I mentioned earlier. And I appreciate the specificity of it having in writing. As you know, I believe this is the third modification of this system that I'm aware of. The first one was west of 54, County Road 54, when Eagle Brook Church went in, and that became an open one, tile. And then we did another one because of the system being disrupted, and this is the third one. And so I'm concerned that you, even though that you put this in print, that you be aggressive in following up to make sure that the property owners on the east side of 35E are not loss of their drainage in their, even though some of those properties, I see you have them named, you know, Neezer's is in there, and Rabines. I think there's two different Rabines, you know, so it's not just one family that I'm aware of. At least that's come to my attention today. Was it, or a few days ago, was it Neezer and Bob Rabine and Matt Rabine were on the upstream side there. There may be some others too, as I see by the map. And finally, reading the maps, I didn't see how the water gets to Peltier Lake. Here I am looking at this map, and it shows that Peltier Lake in the blue, and then there's this brown piece, and I'm assuming that might be the cattail bog or such that's there within the public water, but it didn't, to me, it didn't look like the main trunk clearly went, and I know it does, you know, outlet into that public water. So that's the only comments I have, but I'm very appreciative of those extra requirements you put out, including the video. Very nice, thank you.
Okay, go ahead, Nick.
President Preiner, in regards to Manager Waller's question, I believe is not the outlet shown on page 52 of the packet, the exit into Peltier Lake. I believe that's it.
Well, Madam President, what I was looking at was 57. For example, the blue line just comes to a stop there on the brown, and so I don't, you know,
Right.
I'm just going to say that sometimes these public waters, in my experience, are much larger than what the actual blue open water portion is. That's not uncommon. And so while we have an outlet to the public water, it actually might be a large piece of cattail bog or not. And that sometimes, as we've experienced in the past, can be a barrier to the water flowing at the very end. That's all.
Madam President,
Go ahead.
Manager Waller, yeah, that's a good point. The lines that we have shown on the maps indicating the alignment of the drainage system, they end at the end of the public system, or where the Watershed District has its jurisdiction over the drainage system. And so it's actually fairly common that those will end short of the open water area of the lake, and oftentimes you have a short segment in there where back in the day they didn't figure that it needed to be dug out, but then years later they find out, oh well, that would have been nice to have had as part of the drainage system because it's gotten repeatedly clogged. And as far as I'm aware, that is not affecting the function of the drainage system at the moment down there, but it's certainly something that we monitor and look at to determine is there any condition downstream that could potentially affect the public drainage system upstream. And if you do run into that situation when it is covered by public waters, that does create some challenges in trying to move forward and complete that maintenance, but those are things that may require coordination with the regulating entity, which if it is a public waters, it'd be the DNR. So it's something that, again, the district looks at in its inspection and considers.
So, Madam President, thank you, Chris, for that excellent explanation of what goes on, and it does go on. I was just asking that on the map that portion of cattails that are public waters are such that, so that the general public knows that it just doesn't end there on brown dirt, as it indicates. And maybe in the future, these kinds of public water, ordinary high water marks or another thing, that are in there, and that gives, we need a differentiation. It's not open water, but it's cattail matting or such. And that's all. In the future, thank you.
Point noted, and that's a good comment. We'll consider that.
Any questions? Go ahead.
Madam Chair, so yesterday we talked about, permit fees, and I would assume that there's some fees that this development has paid to Rice Creek to abandon this, and my question this looks like a huge effort on the part of the watershed. So are those fees covering staff
If,
time adequately?
we're both
Yeah.
eager, President Preiner. Let me give it a shot, Chris. Manager Winan, in order to petition the district, they must complete a statutory petition and also provide bond of $10,000. Those dollars are drawn upon continuously as engineer and legal and staff move through the work. So it is paid by the applicant in this case for the petition. The permit itself, under the district's regulations, rules, is a flat fee based on a number of different factors, and that is a different matter. So this is covered by the bond. We do have them replenish those amounts when they're deficient and close the books at the end of the day, so.
Thank you.
Any other questions for staff? Thank you, Chris. Nick? With that, we're ready to hear from the public. It looks like we don't have any public here today. I'll put that on the record. And if was anything written sent in that needs to be read? Anything written? There is no written statements available. Okay, so with that, we're just going to, we have no,
President Priner?
go ahead.
If I could just comment regarding procedure here.
Sure.
We're lingering, if you will, post-COVID, cross your fingers. Pre-COVID, these types of petitions, we would hold the public hearing. We would not extend the time frame, and we would, at the next meeting, consider a order for the board, or the board would consider an order. During COVID, we extended the time frame. We were meeting virtually. We thought it was good practice to provide the public as much access as possible in an altered typical format. So here, as we come back to what will hopefully be, I guess, business as usual with, hopefully COVID will subside. We're set up here to just have the board consider a findings and order at the meeting on the, I think it's the 25th. Yes, on the 25th. And you would just move the proceedings to that day and have the comments kind of end here. If you'd like to extend it, because we're in this gray area, if you will, perhaps end of business on Monday, August 16th, or Friday, the 13th, if you like. And we could still meet the packet deadline later that week and work with Mr. Kolb to create the order. As I look at the materials, I'm not immediately seeing that we have a motion fashioned that way, and I'm sure council would maybe help you if
First of
you
all, I
wanna
want
do
to
that.
officially close the public comment period.
Oh, okay.
But then we'll move on to Nick's comments. I guess my thoughts are, there's no impact on any of the properties surrounding it. I don't see any reason. Go ahead.
Just the stuff on branch 11 that John's been talking about, the
Yeah.
two families there. And we've been working hard to make sure, with John's help, to make sure we take care of that concern. So I don't see a need to extend the comment period.
Madam President.
I would agree.
I think it was explained from the administrator just a moment ago that we've had an opportunity and extended, although it's my recollection that we've always been generous with offering extra time for comment from the public. But in this particular case, that may have already taken place, and so it's probably time to move forward on having the final resolution brought before us.
Okay. So we need an official motion. Louis, do you want to recreate something, or are we?
Madam President, first you may adopt a motion to close the public hearing,
Okay.
and then related or separate action, you can direct the staff to prepare an order on the realignment and partial abandonment of the system, incorporating any comments or discussion by the board and guidance, and then bring that back for your consideration at your next meeting.
Okay, I'll entertain a motion to close the public hearing.
Second?
Motion made and seconded. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right.
Okay.
Madam President, with the help of the wonderful office manager, I move that we direct staff to prepare findings in order consistent with the proceedings, including responses
including responses to all comments received through the public comment process, that the draft findings in order be written to affect the realignment and partial abandonment as petitioned and as recommended in the engineer's report, and that we recess this hearing to the board's regular meeting on
25th?
September.
August 25th, 2021 at 9 a.m., or by adjournment to an appropriate time on the board's agenda, at which meeting we will consider findings and an order for the proposed realignment of a portion of Anoka County Ditch 72? 72, and abandonment of the remnant portions of the drainage system.
I'll second that.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
All right. Nick, you're next.
Yes, President Preiner, Board of Managers, next on the agenda is to consider the MCM4 pilot partnership agreement with the City of Centerville. This falls under the state's MS4 permit that both the district and the City of Centerville hold back in May of 2020 at our annual SWIP meeting. The City of Centerville did make an appearance and asked about partnering in this way. July 12th workshop, we did review the draft joint powers agreement for this pilot project. And at that time, the board was provided emphasis on the point that the value of the agreement for Rice Creek is the city's support in obtaining compliance. And so it may be important here for the board to contemplate that. We don't have violations currently, and how those would be addressed is, unknown to us because we don't know the circumstances such. Within the document itself, on page 77, in the top section under scope of services, D, item C, it talks about our mutual responsibilities and how we would work on non-compliance matters. So, as you know from our past experience, the district does communicate what it finds on site, sends its reports, copies the city, etc. We do not, we want an active partner. We want one that is responsive and supportive when there is non-compliance so that we see these issues resolved for the benefit of the water resources. And with that, I give you the joint powers agreement for your, hopefully a motion to approve and move forward. And I should note, we have had this discussion with the city that this is an important aspect for the district. This is the value it brings to the district when they are an active partner. But it might be good to memorialize those items here.
Oh, wait a minute, wait, before discussion, let's go ahead and make a motion, and then we'll go to discussion. Page 75.
Madam President, I move to approve the joint powers agreement for an MS4 MCM4 pilot partnership with the City of Centerville.
Second?
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Okay.
I was just going to say that, piggybacking on what Nick said, we do have the 30-day rescind option in here too, so I think you find out how it works, and
Well,
as you go forward.
is there any way to word this tighter on that one, on that issue? It says, yeah, we best compliance and all this, but why can't we say that if they see a violation, they have to report it to us within so many days? This,
Yeah,
if they don't say anything, we don't know anything.
That's true.
Whoever,
Madam President, I'll offer a few comments. It certainly is possible to write more detail into an agreement. Ultimately, the district and the city will also want enforcement discretion, depending on the particular facts of what the violation are. And, what I think is unique about this agreement is it reflects the evolution of the relationship between watershed districts and cities.
Correct.
Watershed districts were formed because cities traditionally were focused on so many different things and not always on water issues. And so we've developed our rules and these requirements. There's an overlay of state requirements on cities, and we're trying now to sort out and most efficiently do our work together in a way that both the authority of the city and the authority of the district are fulfilled. So I would say that this discussion highlights the importance and the intent of the district to enter into this with the expectation that there will be enforcement and an active attention and engagement. And so that is an important message regardless of the rest of the detailed agreement. If you wish, I believe the posture is that the city may have already approved the agreement in its current form. And it certainly, if you want to change it, we can do that and send it back and have more process. I think your purpose is also fulfilled just by this discussion and communicating that to the city as well. And again, as Manager Wagaman pointed out, in the event that you discover that it's not working as you intended, there's always a way to change that.
Okay, so now, Marcy, you got
So is this the first of its kind, or do we have other cities that are in a similar John Tellers agreement on this issue?
President Preiner, Manager Wynant, Rice Creek does not have any other agreement
This is the
such as this. In the development of this, district staff found one other example, which struck us as surprising that it wasn't more common. So we are a little bit on the leading edge here.
Thank you.
Madam President, I support Lewis's observations. Right now, we have no power over the cities to enforce their ordinances, and we can't grant ourselves that authority by contract. What we've done is we've given ourselves an ability to get at the table and to be able to bring to them, and it says an obligation on their part to cooperate and work with us. I think this is actually an improvement of our standing.
Okay, any other questions, comments?
Madam President, I would also say that Mr. Smith's explanation this morning, while in very general terms, was excellent. To that point, you can mark that down, Louis. So it isn't too often I give you an A. And I agree with Manager Bradley about the enforcement issue. That's the biggest problem we have, is that we don't have an ability to even enforce our own rules except through a cumbersome civil process that just is really has more barriers to it than it does have efficiency for solving the problems. So this is a beginning step. We have a program somewhat similar, not identical to this one, because this one's very limited in its scope, but Hugo does apply all the rules of the district. And but this is at least a step forward, as Mr. Smith has pointed out, in trying to resolve these issues. It also solves some duplication of inspections. And, but again, we can inspect all we want and we can complain, but our process, whereas the city is in charge of the building permit, they can come to a halt right now. That's it, you're done. Whereas with us, we have to call attorneys and go to the county and court, and it'd be months and months and years. And my one experience with this was I was not a happy camper at the end of it because the expense was just huge.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, check register?
Madam President, I move to approve the check register dated August 11th, 2021 in the amount of $161,946.06, prepared by Redpath and Company.
Second.
We have motion and second. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Items for discussion. Anybody have any questions for the engineer update and timeline? Any questions for Chris? Administrator updates.
President Priner, I will take advantage, I think I touched on a couple of these earlier, or at a previous meeting, but, so here we go. Long Lake Sed Basin is full. We're working with Houston Engineering to develop a task order of what that cleanout will look like, in a lot of that detail with that. That'll also include a memo about what their findings were, of course, on the site. We'll bring that to you later. We did meet with the City of Mounds View staff last week to explore some opportunities to partner. That's in regards to public drainage system maintenance, likely have a walking of the corridor with Ashley, water quality opportunities along the ditch system, and that we were gathering data or samples of the water this summer period. And we heard some of their work on their stormwater infrastructure and some of the challenges that many are having with maintaining these features on the landscape. The theft that the district occurred, we're wrapping that up. We have a few items left to acquire and submit to insurance, the receipt for reimbursement. So hopefully we'll see the end of that in the near future, not too distant future. And the city-county partner meeting that we have, and I've shared this previously, September 22nd, just so you're, hopefully, probably already have it marked on your calendars, but just to bring it up again, someone had asked about it. That is all I have.
So the city-county partnership meeting, where will that be located, and will there be opportunities to have people just Zoom in, or?
Yeah, it's currently proposed to be in person at the Shoreview City Hall in one of their community rooms. So
Okay.
here, yep. We'll be picking a date certain by which we have the opportunity to switch it to a virtual event. And I think in this quote-unquote post-COVID time, we're finding our way of being in person has its benefits, as the board decided in meeting and such, and I think this one is best held in person, but if circumstances require, we'll switch to virtual.
Okay, well, we may consider, I mean, the board can be present, but if we're talking about all the cities in the county gathering, there may be some benefit to having the option of,
To do,
to do a modify,
Yeah.
so
yeah,
so folks
hybrid,
can log in, or,
a hybrid approach?
yes.
Manager want it? Okay,
Yes.
yes.
Okay. I think it's a good idea either way, but I think in person, the counties, they do better when they're talking to us.
You broke into rooms.
Yeah, yeah.
Small groups and stuff
So-
before, and it is.
We might have to restructure if we go virtual.
You never know, it might be 85 degrees, so we can have it outside.
Yeah, maybe.
There you go.
Maybe.
You know, they got a big tent on the back of this building.
Anything else for Nick? Hearing none, manager's update, Manager Bradley.
Unfortunately, I will not be able to attend the Citizens Advisory Committee meeting this evening, 5:30.
Okay, Manager Wageman.
I have nothing.
I hope to attend the meeting tonight, plan to.
Manager Waller.
Thank you, Madam President. Thank you for reminding me about the Citizens Advisory Committee, and thank you for the map, so that I know where to go. I did attend the Washington County Consortium Water meeting this first Wednesday of this month. It was virtual. It was basically a talk about trees and the impact they have on the stormwater drainage systems and the city of Woodbury and how they worked on that. And as it seems to be, as this virtual, people are becoming more acquainted with it, the meetings become shorter. So I think that was about half an hour, which is unusual for that 2-hour meeting.
Yeah.
And I also attended the Metro Mod meeting along with President Priner. I did by telephone. And we had the same experience there.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
it was a very short meeting. There was no controversial things. And so August has been a wonderful vacation month so far.
I have nothing new, so I could entertain a motion to adjourn.
I move to adjourn.
Second?
Motion made and seconded. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
So Mike, can you come over and watch you? What time do you start?
Well, we'll be there.